Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 136 of the Adventures in Angular show. This week on our panel we have Joe Eames.
Hey everybody.
Lukas Reubbelke.
Holler.
Ward Bell.
Hello, hello.
John Papa.
Hello.
I'm Charles Max Wood from devchat.tv. When this comes out, JS RemoteConf will be over, but you can still get tickets for React RemoteConf and Angular RemoteConf, so go check those out. We have a special guest this week, and that's... I should have asked how to say your name. You want to say your name for me?
Yeah, sure. It's Romuald Brillout.
Oh, I would have...
It's a mix.
It's
a German-French mix.
Yeah. Do you want to give us a brief introduction, who you are, what you're about?
Yeah, sure. I studied computer science, freelance in web development, and I like it to keep it broad, so whatever the client needs, I do it. Whether it be programming or lead or really whatever the company needs. Yeah, that's me.
Very cool. Is this picture on your GitHub profile you?
Yes, indeed, it's me. It's not very updated, though.
Yeah.
Clearly your voice has dropped since...
Yeah, I guess I matured quite early. So I'm 11 years old.
So we're going drinking later?
Sure. What was it about the social people? Child abuse? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
but
Lucas.
apparently it's not child abuse if you pour your own stein.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get to business. We invited you on because I invited you on because I ran across this catalog of Angular 2 Plus, which now is just Angular, I guess, but components and libraries, and it's just this long list of, different libraries and components you can pull into your application. So I'm curious, first of all, why do this? Why pull something like this together? I mean, I like it, but I'm curious what...
Yeah, I mean, what were you thinking?
Yeah, that.
Does your team need to master AngularJS? Oasis Digital offers Angular Bootcamp, a 3-day in-person workshop class for individuals or teams. Bring us to your site or send developers to ours, angularbootcamp.com.
It's been a topic on my mind for a while, this thing of finding libraries and also the publishing part. How do you get to users? You publish it on Reddit, you get a spike of users, and then it drops, and then you report them again. How do you get to users? And also finding stuff. I was never really happy about Googling back and forth, and yeah. And I thought about it, and then I discovered also. Yeah, I guess you guys know this awesome lists, and it looks cool. I'm collaborative, and that's how I started making these catalogs. I started with the React catalog, which is quite popular. It's like almost 7,000 stars on GitHub. So I figured there's something there. And yeah, that's how I come up with it.
Yeah, it's...
So you sorry, go ahead, Chuck.
I was just going to say, it's interesting because a lot of these you wind up doing something like npm install, or some of them you kind of copy and paste, you get pull and then you pull it into your application. There are a lot of different ways to get these, and yeah, there's not really a good centralized place to get packages for Angular, at least not that I'm aware of. And so I looked at this and I was like, this is really, really nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah.
Now Ward's going to tell me there is a centralized place.
No. I was going to say this is it's a great idea to curate these things, and so I'm curious about what role you play in making a decision, and then I'm trying to think what I would do as a consumer of it. I know right away the thing that intrigues me is if I'm thinking about building my own, I can always go look at what somebody else did to get a feel for how, the variety of ways in which you can implement something in Angular, and maybe that was one of your motivations.
My motivation was primarily really that finding libraries, more the consuming part. I have a specific use case, and I want a library. That's really the use case I'm trying to cover, and less from the learning material aspect, less from the learning aspect. So it's really, I need a library, and I need it ASAP, and I want a good one.
So what? How do you know it's a good one? That's what I mean. Or do you make a judgment as you look at these things?
So I try. So obviously I cannot test all of them. That's way too much work. I cannot install and actually use them all. So I try to evaluate based on the README, the issues, last commits, and you can get a sense of the quality of it. And and that's mostly good enough, I would say.
Yeah,
but
well,
sure,
you can. I mean, you're counting on the community to pass judgment too. If something really doesn't measure up, then these things are going to get comments. But this is a great trampoline, great starting point for us. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it's a very good point. It's actually that. It's a trampoline, and eventually the community helps. And
So what I want to know is, when are you going to build NGRM or NGPM, the Angular Package Manager?
Yeah.
I put you on the spot. Sure. I'm sorry, but yeah, I mean,
no, it's fine. No, yeah, I mean, it really is about. I mean, the more people know about this catalog, the better it gets, and this is important. And eventually, because if it's collaborative, it's just a README file on GitHub. So if an important library is missing, anyone can edit. So the more users you have, the better it gets. And eventually, and it would be really cool, it's all good stuff are in this catalog. And that would be really, I think, good for the community.
Yeah, I'd love to make a call out to all of our listeners to check out this GitHub repo, which you can find in the notes, and look it over. It's a pretty lengthy list, and make any PRs or help add to this too. It's great when everybody contributes.
And totally open for co-maintaining it. We are 3 right now, and yeah.
How do you feel about third-party paid stuff like DevExpress, Telerik, Kendo, things like that on this list?
Yeah, so until now I declined them. But I'm not close-minded to it. I mean, but there need to be some sort of communicating it.
Yeah, I would think if you did include those, you'd at least want to flag them saying, "Hey, these are paid in some way," right?
Yep. Yeah. But it depends. If it comes up often, then I'll think about it. But right now, it has come up only once. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it as a consumer of it, and of these things, and usually when I'm representing a company, we're trying to have we're looking for a single package that embraces all of them and that's integrated and that has a common look. But I also know that right now there are just huge gaps in anything that I could pull off the shelf, even if I wanted to pay for it. Huge gaps. I mean, or like material design, Angular material isn't complete and is missing some of these things. And so I would be grateful when I need something to reach into here, maybe to supplement something that I had already made a commitment to, because I got to do it one way or the other.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. Point
yeah,
is that what you're thinking, John?
I just want to agree with Ward, especially to the point where some of these are simple enough to where you go and you bring it in and then you just have the component. So I don't have to write it. I don't have to worry about whether or not it works. I just jump in, I put the component into my layout, tell it what data I want it to use, and I'm done.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The other thing I notice is that many of them say no jQuery required or no Bootstrap JS required, and that's a significant point, because many, at least some of the third-party control systems I've seen are highly dependent upon jQuery, and or something like that,
Bootstrap.
or Bootstrap.js, and you're suddenly, you buy into those, and you're buying into all that extra weight, and it does seem like people are concerned about weight these days.
Yeah, so I basically until now I rejected all with jQuery dependency. Doesn't. Yeah.
Interesting.
And but it didn't come up that often, and there were actually none of them were popular. Yeah, and it makes sense. I mean, you don't want the extra weight. It feels kind of foolish nowadays to use jQuery.
Well, I know plenty. I know some people like us who have chucked it into things just so we could keep moving.
Well, I noticed there's a library on your list, and I've already lost it somewhere in here, among the toaster libraries, which I think it's ng2 toaster maybe, and that library is a thing that was extended or forked off of Angular Toaster, which our friend Jesus, that Ward and I work with on the docs team, has written, which was an extension of a thing I wrote with jQuery in Bootstrap called just Toaster. So it's interesting that some of these things have evolved from other libraries along the way as well, and some of them do by default have jQuery in them, like as a 8th level dependency too. So I imagine that's got to be impossible for you to completely weed out.
Yeah, true. And can happen. I'll check it out, actually, what you said. But, I mean, what would be really great, but it's actually for every library to say how much, what's the weight of the library. And you can display this information. And yeah, that would be really cool. So then it doesn't matter if it's jQuery or not. You just look at the weight. And if it's small enough, or it depends on your requirements.
So one question that I had is the original list. I mean, how many of these were contributed by other people, and how many of these were things that you put in initially?
So what do you mean with the original list? Do you mean like the very first version of the list?
Yeah, when you got started, how many of these were in here versus now, how many of these have you found and put in versus other people contributing them?
Yeah. I believe the very first list was 120 Angular libraries. As you can see, it has grown a lot, but I've added myself many of them, so I will estimate. I can actually, not that easily count, but I would estimate around 50. It's been from others, something like that.
Wow.
Have you written any of these or any of these kinds of control libraries or controls yourself?
I've written libraries before, but not for Angular, no.
Yeah.
One thing that I'm also curious
actually, from all the lists, none of them, I don't have any library on the lists. Libraries I've written before doesn't have list catalogs until now, at least.
So how do you find the ones that you add? Are you out there actively looking for them? Or is it just, I found this and I used it and it was nice, and so...
Both. Yeah, both. Yeah.
So when you're actually out there looking, where do you look?
I Google a lot. Yeah. It's actually quite some work. Yeah.
So I'm actually looking at this list, and I feel like I'm a kid in a candy store. This is really, really super awesome. And I actually have a comment about, even someone who might want to get interested in making an open source contribution. If you actually do just a search on the page for wrapper, some of these components are super useful, and they're actually just an Angular wrapper around other very good third-party libraries. So, for instance, like Angular 2 wrapper library for Swiper, Angular 2 wrapper library for Perfect Scroll Bar, et cetera. So it's interesting to me even how, just the barrier to entry to get on this list is actually not that hard. that if you understand, how to actually wrap a component in Angular, that you can actually do valuable work and make, really simplify, and streamline something for not only yourself, but, other people, and, that they'd find it useful.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. And yeah. There's also, I'm not sure if it's interesting to you, there's also a topic of whether you put something to the catalog as an integration or a specific use case. Let's say you have a Meteor integration library. Do you put it as a full stack category, or do you put it into integration? Yeah. And what I do in this type of situations, I put myself in the user perspective, and what is he going to look for? Is he going to look for a full stack category, or is he going to look for an integration? And I'm thinking he's more likely to look for an integration.
Well, I think it depends on the library, though. So, like, for instance, Meteor is pretty full stacky in the sense of it's like, here's this box, and now you have this, like, this full stack, like, web application. Whereas, something else like maybe like Breeze, a little shout out to my buddy Ward, is, that's something that you kind of compose the things on it you want, and that would be more of an integration. So I think it also depends on the nature of what you're dealing with. And also to that, Meteor has actually opened, up where you can start to integrate with other things. But initially it was definitely like this black box of like, it's all Meteor front to back. Whereas, something like, Breeze is, it serves a very specific purpose that you then, can integrate other things into.
Yep.
Yeah, that was an important move that Meteor made. Originally, it was an entire universe unto itself, and you entered the Meteor universe and lived there. And I guess that just didn't play out commercially, so they broke it up.
Yeah, I guess we are afraid of everything related to lock-in. It doesn't feel right. At least that's my point of view on it. I kind of want to keep the flexibility of choosing the tools.
Well, even to that is you certainly wouldn't want to just create something from scratch, like something from scratch all the time. So, for instance, if I need a date picker, well, I'm not going to want to write that from scratch. And so, if you don't have, an option to actually integrate that into your workflow, then, philosophy aside, is like your hands are tied because there's not really a lot that you can do. And so I think there's a lot to be said about, especially when you're vetting a concept and, you're not even for sure what you're going to build, or they're, delivering on time, or just even keeping man hours down, is just being able to pull, something that's already been done. Even a jQuery component, I'm not above that. It doesn't offend me. Is if there's a really good jQuery component, just pull it in and use it, even like the cost benefit of just having that there that's been tested and it's been around and vetted is a lot better than, trying to figure out how to work something into this kind of proprietary black box.
Yeah. Well, this is the tension, isn't it? I mean, as we're out there trying to make decisions, we're trying to find this balance between the freedom and the flexibility that comes from cherry picking what you want, and then the chaos that ensues as you try and cope with each of them on its own revision cycle, and implement it a different way, and whether you end up with just a big ball of mud at the end, and wouldn't you just rather just go shopping and pick one thing? I think of it like sometimes like a car. Like, I'm not going to go out. I'm not going to go out and buy an engine from one company and tires from another and brakes from another, and I'll just, because I can assure you the result is not going to be good. On the other hand, I'm not interested in having General Motors pick my music for me, even if they could decide what was going to be playing on the on the car stereo. So I think that's kind of where we are with this, and I don't think it's necessarily either or. Like I said, I would be tempted to pick to go with something that gave me most of what I wanted, and then shop here on your awesome Angular components for the things that fill in gaps. But that's me.
And so that even is in the frameworks, like, going back a couple years ago, is that, when you had Backbone and they're like, well, what are you? An MVC, an MVVM? And they're just like, we're anything you want it to be. It's just, just make it whatever you want. And then you had like Ember on the other side was, this is exactly how it's done. This is the Ember way, and, very conventional. And so you kind of had two ends of the spectrum, and then Angular kind of fell, into the middle of like, hey, we are prescriptive without being restrictive. And I know very good developers on either end of the spectrum where some people are like, look, I want the freedom to basically roll my own micro framework within, Backbone, for instance, where they had their own way of doing it. But then other people are like, I don't want to think about it. And I know that when, when I spin up an Ember project, for instance, or even like a Rails project, that it's going to be pretty consistent across project and project, which is one reason why I love Angular CLI, because I know if it's an Angular CLI project, there's basically some assumptions that I can make. And so there definitely is that balance of like, do we just give you the freedom to do whatever you want? Or, do we kind of give you some prescriptions about how this should look and, let you kind of follow some prescribed conventions, which I also appreciate.
I've had some thought about that lately, and I'm thinking, why not both worlds, giving flexibility and a bright spectrum of features. For example, you have a bunch of UI frameworks, and especially now with static code analysis and dead code elimination, I could just pick one, let's say the calendar component from one UI framework, and then take the tooltip from another framework, and we'll be fine from the weight perspective. So I'm not sure why we don't go in that direction. And same goes for the frameworks. React is...
A little bit of that now, where you can actually, for instance, take a React component and wrap it in Angular. So that's kind of most of the interop, but even, Polymer, I've seen Polymer in Angular too, and I think that's really great when you give, here's kind of this prescription at a very specific level, but then you can integrate a lot of what you want to do as you see fit. And so even with, like, for instance, Zone.js, which is, really an integral part of Angular 2, is that's actually technically not like an Angular thing, that you can actually use that completely aside, because it's a really super useful thing that's been made available to anybody who wants to use that. And so I love actually this composition of like things that do something really, really well, that they all just play really nicely together.
Yeah, and that's really great thing about web components.
So one other thing that I looked at here, because you have integrations, and I was just kind of browsing, looking for testing systems. So, I see Karma, for example, has an integration. I thought it was interesting that you put it in there as opposed to testing tools or testing libraries like Protractor I don't see on here.
Because I mean, it's what I said before. I'm trying to figure out. Typically, I would tend to think that the user is already set in mind with using Karma. So he's thinking, okay, I'm going to use Karma with Angular, and now I want an integration. So he's more likely to look into integration than to test. That's the thinking. I don't know, does it make sense to you guys?
No, it does. So I have a question. Let me get you out of this entire list, being that you are in the know, you are kind of the super connector now, a la the world is flat, or rather tipping point, is what are your top 3 favorite components in this collection? Like if you had to pick 3 components to live on a deserted island with, what would they be?
That's a mean question, actually. I
think it's the swipe right.
I think it's actually tricky for Angular, because Angular covers so much that the libraries are quite independent from each other. There's not much library that have some central role in the Angular world, because Angular covers so many topics, important topics, that you don't end up having many libraries. For example, for state management, you don't have that many state management Angular libraries, and that's because Angular covered that part. Whereas, for example, in React, you have a bunch of libraries trying to cover that state management problem. And it's a tricky question for Angular.
So let's change this up.
I discovered great stuff. For example, lately a pull request for a product tour, and I think there's many great libraries, but not one that sticks out that's super central.
So what's the last component that you saw where it just really impressed you? Where you're like, hey, this is really cool, or this is really fun to work with. So what's the last one that caught your eye where you're like, whoa, neat?
Hey there, this is Charles Max Wood, and I just wanted to talk to you really briefly about Freelance Remote Conf. I'm putting on a conference for people who want to go freelance or who are freelance, and bringing in some of the experts from the Freelancer Show to talk to you about how to find clients, how to collect money, how to build your business, how to specialize, and much, much more. So if you're thinking about going freelance or you're already freelance and want to hear from the experts on how to go, become, or grow your freelancing business, then by all means, come check us out at freelanceremoteconf.com.
So what's the last one that caught your eye where you're like, whoa, neat?
The last one was actually the product tour library. I think it's not necessarily from a technical point of view, but more from a user experience point of view. I mean, it's nothing new, but still, I thought, it's neat. It's a neat way to introduce a product to a user. That's the last time I had this effect of, that's neat.
Huh. That is cool.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah.
Can I pipe in with my favorite component from this list?
Do it.
So I've been building an app, and I was looking for some various components, and I discovered Prime Faces, Prime NG, and holy cow, are those an awesome set of components. It's actually like a big, huge library. It's way bigger than Material. It's way bigger than NG2 Bootstrap. It's huge, an enormous set of components, and all of them are super slick. They haven't had a single problem with any one of them. So I've been really pleased with that one. And I noticed that it's a huge library, right? Which has a gazillion different components, but it's only like listed in the collection, like like the component collection. When reality is, if you're looking like for something very specific, you might look under the list and be like, I don't see it, right? So somebody should fix that.
So the decision here is basically if you have a layout system, then you are a framework, and if you don't have a layout system, you are component collections. Mm-hmm. And I believe PrimeNG, if I remember correctly, doesn't have a UI layout system.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it does or not. I haven't tried using it, but like I've used its autocomplete component, which is super awesome. So like as an input component, it's amazing, right? Mm-hmm. They have a lot of various components that would fit in other places inside here. Yeah, like popovers. They have a lot of popovers and stuff, overlays.
So can you cherry pick? Can you?
What's that word?
I was saying, holy smokes, this thing is got a lot of stuff in it. Is it?
Oh, yeah.
So now we get to the question that was just being asked. Do you it sounds like you cherry picked from it rather than.
Yeah, because, you actually import an Angular an ES6 module. You import the module. So any modules you don't import, you don't include the code for.
That's great.
You do. There's a CSS file you have to include that's relatively small.
And actually, what would be great is actually to add every component of this framework into every category. So the tooltip one and the tooltip, that would be great.
Somebody on their team should be responsible for that, because it seems like that would be valuable to them. Another place to advertise their product.
How do they make money? And by the way, I don't think there's anything wrong with making money on this stuff, because I want somebody to be able to maintain it, to make if this is their passion, I want them to be able to eat while they're working very hard for me producing these great libraries. So what's the deal?
If you ever change your mind about feeling like it's wrong to make money, let me know. I'll be sure and help you out with that.
Okay.
So it looks like the way that they make money is they have some their components are themable, and they have a few free themes, but they have some upgraded themes that you pay for. So it looks like that's. They also have a bunch of other components that aren't Angular, 2 specific components, and I don't know if you pay for any of those. But the Angular components are all free. But the only piece that you pay for, as far as I could tell with Angular, is their fancy themes.
And it's got to be pricey because when I clicked on buy, it brings me to a page to contact us.
It was like $80. I think if you look around there, it's like $80 for if you're just a regular old developer, and if you're like going to redistribute their themes, then it's more. But if you just want to put it in a site, it's like $80. I think.
Yeah, you have to log in to find out the price, and I'm not willing to do that. But I'll take your word for it on the price. But that's just for the extra themes. It looks like all the controls themselves are free.
Yeah, and they got a bunch of basic themes which just kind of change some colors around.
I just like it because the logo kind of looks like Transformers.
Yeah, it kind of does. And the themes by default look really nice. I mean, they look kind of material-like, but kind of not. But they still look nice, right? A lot better than just the plain input.
But wait, if it looks like Transformers, can Word use it?
Oh, gosh. Wait till it becomes a Transformers Star Wars mashup. Then I'll be in trouble.
Oh, no. Somebody's going to write a webcomic now.
But I think it's great if they can make money out of open source development. It's really, it's definitely a thing that's missing on open source.
Well, that's a big problem in a lot of open source libraries that you see these days. Is there's a lot of great stuff that starts up, and unfortunately, all of us, me included, at times we look at these awesome, great things on GitHub, and then we wonder why they're not active as we want them to be, or they're not changing as many things or hitting issues. Most of these people are just sitting in their house on their couch and coding these, right? And unless they make money off it, how can they justify spending the time to keep them up? So. It's kind of a catch-22. I know, Ward, you've had a special interest in that area with some of your open source libraries, so it's a tough boat.
It's a business killer, frankly. There's just no business that I can see I've ever seen in open source. But this makes this an entirely different show. So
that's a super interesting topic and super important. It would be really great to find a way to monetize open source. And I could see it to be possible, but yeah, that's another topic, I guess.
There is more roadkill on that path than there is success. As a matter of fact, I don't think there is a success on that path. So, but
I think the Kendos and those people like that might differ. Obviously, but some of these guys get bought out too, like Firebase. Well, it's not a component side thing. And Lukas, you worked with them for a bit, right?
I did.
I mean, they were their own thing for a while, and I'd say that was a success. A different road, obviously, but it worked out.
They charged. They expected you to land on their servers. There was the business model has always, that's been related to this is that you have a service. A cloud-based service, preferably, that is where you ring the cash register, and the rest of it is just making it a wonderful place to come.
And that model seems to work, I think, as opposed to the other model of, hey, we made some awesome things, pay for them. I think that's where people are mostly like, hey, I'd rather just go get a free version of that.
Do you guys know how much? So in some documentation of open source libraries, you have advertisements. Do you know how much money they make on this? I'm kind of curious. Is that something that's worth?
No, but I've been told that for example, my style guide. I've been told many times by people I should put a little ad up there, and I haven't. But I've looked at the traffic I've gotten on it, and it's insane. I imagine if you had a high trafficked open source project and you didn't charge for it, that you could make a little bit of money by doing ads.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it would be much, though. I know of a particular very high traffic Angular site that has some ads, and I don't think it's much, more than a couple $100.
And how much CPM is that? What's the CPM?
That I do not know, but I know that probably every single person who does Angular has been on this site.
Okay, that's it's not much.
There's some ads on there, and I don't think the owner of the site is driving around in a Ferrari by any means.
No, I think you have to switch. You have to switch to fake news. That's how you really make the money.
But obviously, and we're obviously going off a tangent a little bit, but I think what I'm trying to get at here is that these awesome components that you've assembled on your page, I think, in addition to having people kind of help out there and contribute to them, I think there's a lot of libraries that probably still aren't there, even that we're not even aware of, that people who are creating these open source libraries, a lot of the reason they do it is they love creating them. And if they want to get more exposure for them, maybe they can contact you through the GitHub page and, make a PR or talk to you about adding them.
Definitely. That's the idea. Yeah.
I mean, even to that, I think people, like, they have a certain problem that they're trying to solve. And I think that, so for instance, there was the Chosen plugin, which was this really cool drop down with, kind of tags and different things. And I wrapped that in Angular simply because I needed to solve a problem. And instead of just, pushing it away, I just put it out on to GitHub. And I've actually had people request, I've even signed release forms that hey, you can go use this internally on some project. And it's really interesting when you put stuff out there to solve your own problem, how people will find it and they're like, oh, you've solved my problem because you have the same problem I did, and it's now useful. I actually did a proof of concept wrapping a date picker in Angular 2, and it was just a quick example, and I accidentally posted it on GitHub, and I took it down, and I got probably 3 or 4 emails within 2 days of hey, where's this repo at? We were using it, and it's just oh, sorry, I didn't know anybody was looking. And so even I would say, there's kind of these tiers of, one, if you have a problem and you write something that's useful, just put it up onto GitHub and other people will probably find it useful. And then, to John saying is, there are definitely people who are very passionate about solving a certain thing and maintaining it. And, I love this list here because I think that's an opportunity to, get eyes on it and get people interested and, just making it all around better.
That sounds great. I mean, your story. That's really cool. Mm-hmm. So what
I'm
do you guys?
Go ahead.
So, what do you think? What do you guys think could be better on this list? What do you guys?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Is what's your next step? Where's this leading for you?
I don't think that for us it's more to say we've had a couple of small comments of this or that. I think it might be good for a nice idea if you reached out to places like PrimeNG and said, hey, this is a list that has your stuff. If you guys wanted to take some time and help keep this up to date and curated, it'd be in your interest, right? That might help you out to reach out to some of the makers of these things. But the one thing that is always lame to do to an open source maintainer is to say, hey, you need to add these features or else your project sucks, because right now the project's awesome.
Yeah, but still, I want to hear feedback. I mean, it would be really cool to improve it. So any negative feedback is welcome.
So I think that one thing that would be helpful for me is I'm just kind of scanning through this, and I'm actually looking not on the README, but the actual official site is, and actually I do see some, it looks like you're just pulling in the README, but even, and this would require a little bit of work, but even a thumbnail or something, so just I could quick visually see what this component actually looks like. And
yeah,
I mean, I think that would just, as I'm just scanning through here, I mean, it is pulling in the README, so I think that's pretty good. But some of this stuff, I'm actually having to click through to get a sense of oh, this is what this thing is. Or even if there's a demo link, maybe surfacing that up. Mm-hmm. So it's available right, when you click, there's the demo. So people can just see it as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thanks.
I'll submit a pull request on that.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. Other feedback?
Come on, guys, don't be shy.
Well, I don't know. It's silly because it's really not hard to do. But I if it had the GitHub, almost all these reach to GitHub, and if they had the stars next to it, that you'd get a sense of, when the last commit was. You'd have a quick look right from your homepage about whether the thing was actively maintained and well liked.
Yeah,
So
stars, last commit, closed issues, that kind of stuff's really, really good to have. It's just where do you stop and where do you start with that, though?
Right. But the API, the GitHub API could do it. I mean, it's a lot of work, but hey, you asked, so I'm telling you.
No, definitely. I mean, that's super feedback. Thank you. Yeah. And actually, if you click, so on the official website, if you click on an entry, you see the last commit. It's printed there, but not the issue things. How many issues open, how many closed, and a commit graph would be awesome as well.
So, do I really? When I click on it, I mean, you're saying that when I click on one of these links, it takes me to the GitHub place. Not it doesn't. I don't see.
Yeah, so you're probably on the README on GitHub, and if you go on the official website.
Aha!
Then you click, and then you see the
website.
Last commit on blah, blah, blah.
There it is.
And the other nice thing is the website has a quick way to add entries, so you don't have to do PRs if you want to add more items, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's also
really nice.
A lot for the maintainers because it becomes a hell to maintain if you have 50 open pull requests with pull request conflicts and people mess up in the pull request. Becomes really hard to manage, and this just solved the problem.
Well, I guess all you have to do is get rid of Angular 2, because that doesn't exist. It's just Angular. Yeah.
What did you guys think about this? Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, the feedback.
This is a tremendous resource. I'm a little I'm overwhelmed with just how much there is, but it's a very encouraging.
Yep. Yeah, I was super impressed just by the sheer number of things that are available here, and just it's
and
nicely
I'm sure there are
organized,
many
so
things.
It's easier to find. It's easy to find a lot of this stuff.
And I'm sure there are many missing things.
Well, yeah, but that's part of the process, and coming on a show like ours, or Angular Air, or being on the NG newsletter, or having the core team mention it, you get more people looking at it and going, "Oh, well, I have a solution that should be on here too," and then it becomes better and better. And that's the thing that I like about this too, is that it's accessible to most people who use GitHub because a pull request is something that we all understand.
Yeah, it's a super important part of it. This is the collaborative part. So if there's no feedback, I have a question for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you guys think about this new feature on GitHub, the tagging, so that anyone can tag its own GitHub repository?
I haven't looked at it, so
it may make your job easier, or in terms of like Angular stuff. I think it's easier to click on and find it related stuff.
Why don't you explain what this feature is? Because I'm not sure people know.
So if you have a GitHub repository, you can tag your GitHub repository, and if people click on the tag, they see a list of GitHub repository that's tagged with a tag. And that's, I guess, the angle is to allow people to explore libraries and open source repositories.
I see. So if I take my library and I say, give it the tag persistence, then other people searching for the word persistence will find it.
Exactly.
I didn't. You can tell I didn't know about it.
No.
I don't know. I'm not sure. It doesn't feel right. This tagging. There's no convention. Anyone can tag whatever they want. It becomes chaotic, and it's kind of contradictory to have something chaotic to organize. And you can see it on the NPM registry. The tagging on the NPM registry doesn't work. I don't know anyone who uses the tagging on NPM to find libraries. Do you?
Well, it's probably a critical mass thing. Like Stack Overflow had it from the very beginning, so people do use that, and it's part of this, and it gets search preference and things like that.
I mean on NPM, yeah. For Stack Overflow, it makes sense. I mean, if you want to have JavaScript related questions, then yeah, you can find them like that. But for libraries, I'm not sure. On NPM, doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting idea, but yeah, if anyone out there is using it, comment on the episode. But yeah, I think we're getting close to the end of our time, so I'm going to push this to picks. Are you looking to expand your skills in mobile development? Have an idea for the next Angry Birds app? Then you need to check out iOS Remote Conf, produced by the same team that brings you your favorite devchat.tv podcasts like Ruby Rogues and iFreaks. Join us for 2 days of jam-packed fun and learning streamed to you live May 17th and 18th. Go check it out at iosremoteconf.com. Joe, do you want to start us off with picks?
Sure. So I want to pick something that obviously contributes a lot to Angular components, and that's jQuery.
What's that, Joe?
It's an awesome, amazing library, and even though it has fallen out of favor in today's day and age, it still is, absolutely the most used library out there, and really moved web development forward. And I still use it on occasion. I got to throw together something quick and need a quick this or that. It might be the requirement for something I'm using, but I still use jQuery occasionally. So I'm going to pick jQuery. It's a fantastic library, and no other library has or likely will ever have the effect on JavaScript development that jQuery has, and web development in general. I'd also want to pick, the component library I was talking about earlier, PrimeNG, by Prime Faces. And it's such, every time I've used one of their components, I've been really happy with it. So, really grateful to have been able to find that one. And it was before I even knew about this amazing list. And in some ways, I'm almost glad I didn't know about this list, because, man, I would have spent an extra 20 hours looking through this, trying to find stuff to fit my needs. I tried a bunch of stuff, Material and Angular 2 Bootstrap, and finally discovered Prime Faces. And then one more pick for me. I was playing board games all weekend long at a conference called SaltCon. So if you're ever in the Salt Lake area in March and want to play board games for 3 or 4 days, come to SaltCon. I had a really, really good time. Those are my picks.
All right. Lucas, what are your picks?
Unlike Joe, I just have one pick this week, and that is the Complete Far Side that you can actually buy on Amazon for about $63.07 apparently today, as of the time of this recording. And it has the entire Far Side comic collection. I grew up reading it. I found some gift cards into Amazon, and I bought the complete set. And within the first 5 pages, I was just rolling. It's a really, really funny thing. And for $63, you can have the whole enchilada.
That sounds fun. Ward, what are your picks?
Well, following Joe, I thought cave painting should really get a shout out. I mean, let's face it, thousands of years of cave painting can't be all wrong. And that's my pick.
Oh, that's awesome. I have one pick really quickly. My wife and I went out for our wedding anniversary. We've been married 12 years. And we went and saw the movie The Shack. And for those of you who don't know what it's about, it's basically a Christian allegory. But I thought it very well represented what Christians believe about God. So if you're Christian, it's amazing. If you're not Christian and you don't get Christians, go see it and you'll get it. It is all I really have to say about it. It was an amazing movie. I really, really enjoyed it. And so yeah, I'm gonna pick that. I'm afraid to say your name. Romuald, what's your pick?
Yeah, it's good. So it's not really a recommendation, but there's this I recommend people to check out into pushing the V3C consortium to make a proposal about a shared cache for browsers. So means that one website loads a framework like Angular, and another website load the same framework. Instead of loading it 2 times, it loads it only 1 time from a shared cache. And I think this is super. It will play an important role for the future of the web. And I'm surprised that this idea doesn't get more attention. And I think it deserves more attention, and that's half. I'm sure if you could call it recommendation, but yeah.
I think Chrome does that already, doesn't it? I mean, it's just not everywhere, right?
I'm not aware of it. I don't think so. At least as far as I know. But it would be really great because in the end, you could have one website. You could have a website combining a bunch of libraries. You can use React, Angular, Vue, or whatever, and it's fine on the weight perspective because you use the library. N websites use the same code, and it doesn't add weight to add Vue to your code base, or Angular, or React.
I'm pretty sure that they do that some of the browsers are doing just this, that they are actually pre-parsing them and keeping them in parsed form, so you also don't pay the price of it being reparsed again as it's brought into memory. And
that's great.
So I'm going to try and find the link to that discussion.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Because then I'm figuring, why would you bundle then a big framework into your code? Then it doesn't make sense to bundle. Then you shouldn't bundle it then.
All right,
so you hit the shared cache. Yeah.
I'm just going to push us to the end of the show, and I'll let you guys finish discussing this after the show. But yeah. Thanks for coming. This was really fun to talk about, and a lot of cool stuff on this list. So we'll put a link in the show notes. People can go check it out. And we'll call it a wrap, and we'll catch y'all next week.
Thanks for having me. It was great talking with you guys.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yep.
Bandwidth for this segment is provided by CacheFly, the world's fastest CDN. Deliver your content fast with CacheFly. Visit CACHEFLY.com to learn more.